The Mecklenburg County election debates are a service of WTVI, Mecklenburg County, and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The views and opinions expressed in these debates are those of the candidates and do not necessarily represent the views of WTVI, its management, Mecklenburg County, or the League of Women Voters.
PBS Charlotte and the League of Women Voters present Election Debate 2016.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WTVI, PBS Charlotte. Welcome to the Mecklenburg County Commissioners at Large Democratic primary debate sponsored by the League of Women Voters Charlotte-Mecklenburg. In the next 40 minutes, we'll talk with three of the Democrats running for the three at-large Mecklenburg County Commission seats. Alice Scarborough was unable to participate. The top three vote-getters will face Republican Jeremy Brash in the County Commission at-large race in November. The questions for the debate were provided by the League of Women Voters Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The candidates have not seen the questions in advance. I will call on the candidates in random order. They'll have between 30 seconds and 1 minute to answer each question, and I'll tell you how much time you have before you respond to the questions. If you would like to challenge your opponents, we ask the candidates to raise their yellow challenge cards. You will have 30 seconds to respond, and each candidate has 3 challenges during this debate. There are no opening statements, but each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 30-second closing statement. And now, let's meet the candidates in the Mecklenburg County Commissioners at-large Democratic primary. The candidates are Patricia Pat Cotham, D'Amico Faulkner, and Trevor Fuller. And we're glad to have you all with us.
Thank you.
For our first question, we begin with Pat Cotham. What do you see as the greatest challenge for Mecklenburg County this year?
We have many challenges. Certainly, education is always probably what we spend the most time on. So that is something that we get a lot of input from the community. We interact with our colleagues on the school board, and we take that very seriously. So that is, I think that's probably number one on the public mind.
All right. And again, this first question will be for a 30-second response. Mr. Faulkner, we go to you.
Would you repeat the question?
The question is, what do you see as the greatest challenge for Mecklenburg County this year?
I would also say that education is one of the greatest challenges here. I'd also add that un- and underemployment is what I would say the greatest challenges is.
All right, thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Mr. Fuller, your response.
Well, first of all, Jeff, thank you for having us here, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. And it seems to me that the biggest challenge in our community is economic opportunity, that everyone in the community have an opportunity to share in the prosperity that we enjoy in Mecklenburg County. That economic opportunity, I think, will be shown through education, through job creation, and through health care. But to me, that's the biggest challenge that we face.
All right. Our second question, also a 30-second response we're looking for. And the question is, the county manager has said Mecklenburg County is likely to enjoy a surplus next year. How do you propose to use that surplus to help county residents? Mr. Faulkner, we begin with you.
Well, first I would ask that I use different terms. There has been an increase in revenue that has been coming in. But I would say that we would definitely reinvest in the programs and services offered in the county. Continue reinvesting in those services, such as strengthening education, continuing to provide resources for job training, as well as investing in public safety.
All right. Mr. Fuller, your response?
Well, I'm always cautious about the term surplus. I think the better way to frame it is that our revenue is coming in better than we expected it to come in. And the challenge for us always is, how do you deploy those additional resources? In my view, we ought to think about further investments in education. We ought to think about also further investments in how we can create jobs for people in our community.
All right. And again, the question is, the county manager has said Mecklenburg County is likely to enjoy a surplus next year. How do you propose to use that surplus to help county residents? A 30-second response. Ms. Cotham?
Oh, thank you. We had a surplus last year as well, and our county management staff does an excellent job. And, one thing, we have certain goals that we as a board that we focus on. So we come together, and not one of us decides this on his by himself or herself. So we'll come together and reinvesting it back into the community, and especially in our education is in jobs and veterans and all homelessness. Everything that we focus on will definitely probably be where it goes.
All right, thank you. Our third question for this debate, a proposal to allocate 50% of the county's revenue to CMS for both operating and capital expenditures, as well as for charter schools, has been floated. Would you support that proposal? Why or why not? Mr. Fuller?
All right, thank you. Yeah, that proposal has been made by one of our colleagues on the Board of County Commissioners, and we had a chance to talk about it at our recent retreat. The view that I expressed and that I still hold now is that at a time when people want the county commission to hold accountable not only CMS but all of our partners in providing educational services, that by having just a percentage and say that off the top you'll just give that percentage to the educational sector, I think doesn't lead you to accountability. So I don't favor a percentage approach, but I do think we need to talk about how to make things more accountable.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Ms. Cotham.
Oh, thank you. I think it's good that we have a board that everyone is free to, give an opinion or a suggestion. And I do struggle with just a blanket 50% or no matter what the percentage is, because I think we need to be very thoughtful and we need to listen to the community and to our schools and talk amongst ourselves. So I think that being more thoughtful to come up with the right number with the benefit of our county staff is the best way.
All right. Mr. Faulkner?
I think that the start would be to address those issues and see what resources or what amount of resources is actually necessary to be allocated, and then move from there. Again, the voice of the community and those who are actually within education, a part of education, would play such a vital role in determining exactly how much should be designated for education.
All right. Our next question will be looking for a 1-minute response, and it will go to Ms. Cotham. The question is, teacher pay in North Carolina has dropped to one of the lowest in the country, and there is concern that effective teachers are leaving the state. Do you support an increase in the county's supplement to teacher pay in order to reverse that trend? Why or why not?
Thank you. Certainly this is a very important issue, and we do need to remember that it is the state's responsibility. And we as a county, we certainly have supplemented the teachers. And in fact, I believe we pay 100% for like 908 of the teachers. It's important that we look at the whole thing and what we can do. And because we already give supplements to the teachers, we are not in Mecklenburg County at the bottom of nationally. In other parts of the state, that is true, but because we give supplements. But I think it's something we discussed the last budget season. I think we're going to discuss this every budget season, and I welcome the discussion on it.
All right. Mr. Faulkner, your response.
I do agree that teachers should receive a raise. The role as teacher is one of the most important roles that we have in the world, and to overwork and underpay a teacher is what I feel is a mistake. However, that does require adequate discussion to see exactly how we can work things out, not only monetarily, but also in terms of resources that support that role of teacher.
All right. And again, the question is, do you support an increase in the county's supplement to teacher pay in order to reverse that trend? Why or why not? Mr. Fuller.
Well, thank you again, Jeff. And this is an important question. Look, my short answer is yes. We need to pay our teachers. The fact of the matter is that we're losing teachers at too high a rate to our neighbors in South Carolina and other states, and we can't tolerate this very much longer. We've got to find a way to fund increases in our supplement. Indeed, the state has to find a way to increase teacher salaries. This is too important. An educated populace is the key to prosperity. And so when we tell teachers that we don't value what they do, and that's what we say when we don't pay them appropriately, what we are saying is that we don't think much about the prosperity of our community. And I just don't think that that's a message we ought to continue to send. So yes, I think we ought to find ways to increase the supplement for our teachers here. But more to the point, we need to find a more sustainable way to pay our teachers more right from the beginning.
All right, thank you. And our next question also pertains to pay. The median wage in Mecklenburg fell by almost 8% over the last 5 years, greater than the national average. What economic development solutions will you promote to address this decline? And Ms. Coughlin, we go back to you.
You know, this is also a tricky issue. We've certainly heard a lot about the $15 wage per hour. But, you know, that's also, we have to think about the cost of living. A $15 amount in California equates to $9 an hour here because of the cost of living. I think how we set an example is the first thing. And we have already looked into our county employees, the people that are at the bottom of the pay scale. But I think that one thing that we cannot tell small businesses what they need to do, but I think we could lead discussions on this, and I think that would be something that, and listen to the people and see what makes sense. I do know that I think back years ago, I worked at a Walmart store because I had to care for my mother-in-law, and in 1989, I was paid $8 an hour. In 2014, many Walmarts were paying $7.75. Something's wrong.
All right, thank you. Again, the question is, the median wage in Mecklenburg County fell by almost 8% over the last 5 years, greater than the national average. What economic development solutions will you promote to address this decline, Mr. Faulkner?
Well, first, I would start with examining the language used. Oftentimes, we hear it referred to as minimum wage, but when it needs to be, or perhaps it would be more understood, or better understood, and identified as a livable wage. What is minimum may not necessarily be livable. And an example that comes to mind is a top-down example from the CEO of Costco, who does not necessarily make what he feels he should make, but he considers those who are working with him. And I think that he has stood on two words that oftentimes people would consider profanity: selflessness and sacrifice. And we see that it's worked. Costco is one of the most successful businesses, corporations in the country, and it came from him being selfless and working and living sacrificially.
All right, thank you for your response. Mr. Fuller.
Well, thank you. And Jeff, I think this question hits again on the issue of economic opportunity, because what you're pointing out is a condition that we all know exists, which is income inequality, and whether people are actually receiving living wages. And the fact of the matter is people are not. And so the key economic development tool that we can use is to get people into jobs that pay them a livable wage. And what that means from the county perspective is, when we incentivize companies to come to Mecklenburg County, we ought to be thinking about what kinds of jobs these are, what kind of wages these jobs pay people, so that we are encouraging economic activity to create jobs that people actually can get and can support their families with. So to me, it's thinking further about economic incentives, and it's about getting people into jobs.
All right, thank you. And again, our next question is also pertaining to wage as well. Do you support a minimum wage in Mecklenburg County, and what would that be? So let's start with you, Mr. Faulkner. What would that dollar amount be?
I would, first of all, thank you for the question. But yes, I do. I do support there being a minimum wage. I cannot. It's difficult. I know that the $15 mark has been thrown around nationwide, at least. But I have to stand again on what's livable. What is livable, and how is that compared to the cost of living? So I can say that I do agree with there being a minimum wage, but again, we have to do some serious thinking and be cognizant of what's livable compared to the cost of living.
All right, thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Mr. Fuller.
Well, Jeff, your question, there is currently a minimum wage. So I think your question really is, should we increase the minimum wage? And I'm uncertain about that. The research is unclear. What is clear is that people need to have a living wage. Mm-hmm. And what is that? What is that number? And I think that's where we've got to do some more thinking and research about what that number is. Mm-hmm. So I think that the discussion about minimum wage may miss the point. And the point I believe really is, what is a living wage? And should we impose a living wage in this county? I haven't come down on where I am on that, but I do think we ought to figure out how to get people into jobs that actually pay them a livable wage, rather than just talking about it as a policy matter.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cotham, your response.
I think it's important that we lead some kind of discussion on this. Again, I don't think the county can really decide the living wage for, the state or federal operations, because it involves a whole lot more people. But I know when I go and visit businesses, I often ask them, what do you pay your employees? And I went to a trucking company, and they said that it was a small business, but their mechanics were making, $25 to $30 an hour. And I wouldn't have expected that. I was very happy to hear that. But I think that we need to ask these questions more and celebrate the businesses who are doing this and who are paying well. And because we have a lot of businesses here in Mecklenburg County that are. So I think we need to kind of be proud out loud, and we need to maybe ask them to help us lead an effort so that people who are not paying as well can maybe look at that a little differently.
All right, thank you for your response. Our next question is, a joint campaign by the city and county has shown some success in providing homes for veterans. How can that model be extended to other homeless people? Will you support the counties doing that? Mr. Fuller, your response.
Thank you. So, yes, we had an initiative called Housing Our Heroes, and through that program, we set out to end veteran homelessness in Mecklenburg County, and we were able to successfully do that. And we are learning the lessons from that effort to end homelessness among veterans for our other initiative, which is to end chronic homelessness in Mecklenburg County by the end of 2016. We still have a lot of work to do, and it is a difficult task, but I do support the effort of ending chronic homelessness in Mecklenburg County, and more to the point, that we should be trying to end homelessness in total in Mecklenburg County. An ambitious task, but that's where I think we need to be, where we need to go.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cotham?
Thank you. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, and not only homeless veterans, but we also have many veterans who are incarcerated. And I'm very happy that we have made progress on housing for veterans, and we need to expand that and evaluate the data to see what makes sense and what's working and what's not. But we really need to I think, do a whole lot more for veterans in our community. We have a department in the county, and we've expanded that and tried to be able to help more veterans. We're going to have a new veterans hospital open up. We need to make sure our veterans are going to be able to get there if they don't have a vehicle, and I think we're working on that as well. So homelessness goes all across the whole boundary, and veterans, I think, are our first the first group of people that we need to continue to welcome home and make them feel like they're important in our community, because they are.
All right, thank you. Mr. Faulkner, your response.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I absolutely agree with that joint effort. I commend the county and the city for working together to make sure that our veterans are taken care of. I see the issue of homelessness as one that a lot of us, in some cases, any of us can be subject to. A lot of us are one misfortune away from being homeless ourselves. And so to spread that burden and take responsibility concertedly is commendable. So if we can continue working in that effort, I think that we will tackle and address more issues successfully.
All right, thank you very much. There have been lots of studies recently, lots of press, media stories about upward mobility. Our next question will go to Ms. Cotham. How do you propose to address specifically the lack of economic opportunity and mobility for the county's poorest residents?
Well, I am glad that we are having a study done right now, and we should have some answers down the road. I guess the Urban League is a group that I get a lot of information from, and I don't think they're involved in that, but they offer a lot of opportunities, and they are doing tremendous opportunities to tremendous things in training to help people and move them out with more training and education. So education is critical in this, and there's a tremendous amount of nonprofits that are working on this, and I think that we're on the right track. We have to just keep focused on it. We have to be laser focused on this, and I think we can make a difference. I think we were all caught off guard a few years back when this happened, when we found out we were at the bottom, but we're taking action, and I'm sure in the near future, we're going to have some good models that we're going to be able to lead in this. And I think we just need to keep doing what we're doing and keep the focus on it.
All right. Again, the question is, how do you specifically propose to address the lack of economic opportunity and mobility for the county's poorest residents? Mr. Faulkner.
I would start by touching on sharing. Sharing, be it information. There have been times when a conversation, a brief conversation, has totally changed my perspective and enlightened me to some things that I had no idea about. Now, mind you, there are some things that have to be done and should be done rightfully on both parts, be it definitely being disciplined and and being mindful of the decisions that are made, but also shared information, shared resources, and shared power even. Understanding that by sharing, we don't necessarily lose. If we all have a perspective of moving upwardly, if I share information with you, share resources, then I don't lose because I'm moving up, and so are you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fuller, your response.
Yeah, so when we got this result, this shocking result that Charlotte was ranked 50 out of 50 in metro areas across the country for concentrations of poverty and lack of economic mobility, it was a wake-up call for us. And that's why I called for the formation of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Economic Opportunity Task Force. And that task force is charged with two things. One, to find out why we have such concentrations of poverty and lack of economic mobility here in Mecklenburg County. But the second, more important thing is to identify specific solutions that work, evidence-based solutions that work. And so I believe that we need to give the task force the time it needs to continue that work, to create this blueprint for action for us. There are certain things we know are true. One is that early childhood education is key, and we know that getting people in jobs is key. So my answer to your question is to let the task force do its work and then be able to present a blueprint for action for all of us in our community.
All right, thank you. Our next question is, will you continue to push for 4-year terms for county commissioners despite having lost that vote in last November's election? Yes or no? And also why? Mr. Faulkner, we begin with you.
I would. I am continuing to see the complexity of the role of commissioner, and the 2-year term is something that I've seen those who are seated work with and do a great job at. Nevertheless, not as a means of being slowful or procrastinating, but a 4-year term would give room for discussion. It would give room for recovery after error, God forbid. So the 4-year term does give individuals a little more time to work and get to that level of proficiency that we need to be at as Mecklenburg County.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fuller, your response.
Yeah, I still support the idea of 4-year terms, but the people have spoken. The issue was put on the ballot last year, and the people have spoken, and they've said that they do not want county commissioners to have 4-year terms, and I accept the judgment of the people. What I would say is that we ought to consider what we can do to allow people who are serving in office to be able to make decisions that are longer range in thinking. We are one of the only counties in the state that have commissioners with 2-year terms. Most other counties, almost all counties in the state, have commissioners who have 4-year terms. And what that allows you to do is to make decisions and start to see some results from those decisions before your term ends, and even to make corrective action if you need to do so. So while I still do support 4-year terms, I think the question has been answered for our community. The people have spoken, and I accept that judgment.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cotham, your response.
I have been adamantly against 4-year terms. I believe we need to have much stronger accountability to the people. We work for the people, and the people have a right to keep us there or take us out. And I believe that accountability is critical. And so even though other counties may have 4-year terms, we are unique. I mean, we're the biggest county, and we have the most citizens. And 2-year terms, I think, is good enough for the Congress. It's good enough for our state legislators. It certainly is good enough for us. And I would oppose any 4-year terms.
All right, thank you for your response. Our next question is, do you think it's time for the County Commission to complete the park promised to the Plaza Eastway neighborhoods? And we begin with Mr. Faulkner.
Yes, I do believe that the county should complete the work to cut back on congestion, as well as what seems to be long-term detours. So if because the county has made that agreement, that promise, so to speak, that project should definitely be completed.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fuller.
Yeah, clearly we need to finish the Eastway Park, and so the question really is one of time. When is it to be done? We are about to enter into another capital cycle. In other words, we're going to create a new capital plan for the period after for fiscal year 2018 and beyond. And clearly the construction of the Eastway Park has to be part of that plan. What we try to do is to make sure that park facilities are available to people throughout the county. And what has happened over time, particularly because of the Great Recession, is we weren't able to fulfill all of those promises that were made before 2008. But I think now is the time for us to fulfill the promise that we made to people in East Charlotte, to have a regional park there at Eastway Park. We've had many conversations with our Park and Rec Director, Jim Gargis, to actually have that happen, and I think it will happen fairly shortly.
All right. Ms. Cotham, your response.
I've been over to that park several times with the citizens who are advocating for that. And I'm one of those that I like to see things for myself. So I have been over there. And what we have right now is we don't have much. We don't even have restrooms that are open in that park. We have homeless people who are staying in that park. We have a lot of crime in that area. We have the citizens who are advocating it say that they desperately need this, and I believe them. They do desperately need it. Now we need more parks and more things all over the county, and we have to prioritize. But this is a very fragile area, and we cannot lose more young men and more people going to prison because they don't have anything to do. The seniors need it for their health. And so I'm an advocate for this. I have been over there and I've met with them, and it's time. It's their time to be, I often say, their time to be up at bat on this. And we need to finish that and make it something glorious. They need some joy over there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next question goes to Mr. Fuller. How can the County Commission show a better face to the public in doing the work of the Commission?
Well, I might challenge the assumption in your question, Jeff, that we are not currently doing it. I believe that, look, this is a passionate job. People are very passionate who serve on county commission, and we're a very involved board. People ask questions, they bring issues to the fore. And I think that's good for governance in our community. So I don't shy away from passion that people show in serving the people of this county. Now, my job as chairman of the board is to try to make sure that we keep it in certain guardrails, that people have an opportunity to say what they need to say, but that we ultimately get the business done that needs to be done for the people. I believe we're doing that. Perhaps we're not tooting our horn as loudly as we can or maybe should, and perhaps we ought to do that more so that people know the work that we're doing. But I don't think that passion, I don't think that people who really care about serving the people should be corralled or diminished.
All right, thank you for your response. Ms. Cotham.
Well, I would say that that we could do better. And, but we are all 9 individuals, and we're interested and certainly focused on the public good, but people have their own individual ideas and attitudes. And I've certainly have faced obstacles myself on the board, but I just try to stay close to the people and try to listen to them and do what I think is right. So, I don't think any organization is ever perfect. I don't think that's a goal to be perfect. I wish things were better. I wish they were friendlier and more open. And maybe in time they will be. But in the meantime, we can still do a lot to influence things in Mecklenburg County, and I believe we are doing that.
All right, thank you. And again, the question is, how can the County Commission show a better face to the public in doing the work of the Commission? Mr. Faulkner.
Well, I believe that, and there has been an invitation. There is an invitation for the public to be involved and engaged in the decisions and how things are run at the county level, but just to be consistent and persistent about inviting the public in to be involved in and be a part of those decisions that are made on the behalf of the people. I believe that an open door policy in all instances, as well as continuing to work in joint efforts when opportunity presents itself, is another way of doing an effective job of that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Faulkner. And now it's time for our 30-second closing statements, and we will begin with Patricia Pat Cotham.
Well, thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting us here. I would just say to the people that I am very much out in the community, and people know me, and I work for the people. I ask the tough questions. I am that person. In fact, one of my colleagues said, I'm the one who puts the smelly fish on the table. And that's true. I do that. I do ask tough questions because I believe the people need answers for things. So I ask to be one of your 3 choices. You will always be able to count on me. I will listen to you no matter what party you are in, and I act professionally and with respect to the citizens of Mecklenburg County and to my colleagues.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Pat Cotham. I ask to be one of your 3 choices.
Thank you. And Mr. Faulkner.
My name is D'Amico Faulkner, and I'm running for County Commissioner at Large here in Mecklenburg County to help to strengthen and make Mecklenburg County a better place for everyone. I am a native of Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg County, to be exact. I want to come and look at the resources that we're using and do a better job of using what we have here as County Commissioner at Large. I too am in the streets. I'm here. I'm talking to people to see exactly what it is the people need and what it is they desire to see done in Mecklenburg County, as opposed to assuming. I hope that you would consider me on March the 15th when it's time to vote for County Commissioner at Large here in Mecklenburg County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Mr. Fuller.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. Again, I'm Trevor Fuller, and I'm privileged to serve as a county commissioner at large and as the chair of the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners. And I'm asking for your support and your vote on March 15th in the primary because there's still work for us to do. I still believe that we need to address the problem of economic opportunity in our community by providing greater investments in education, by looking at getting people jobs in our community, and by focusing on health care. I ask for your vote. Thank you for having us.
All right, thank you. And again, we want to say thanks to all of the candidates for the Mecklenburg County Commissioners at Large Race Democratic Primary. For information about the League of Women Voters Charlotte-Mecklenburg, go to www.goleaguego.org. And remember, your vote matters. Early voting begins March 3rd. The primary will be held Tuesday, March 15th. Thanks so much for watching.